Good morning, everyone. I want to apologize for the connection being lost during the Hangout today. And, it sounds like most of you couldn't really hear anything I said. So I apologize. That must be frustrating and obviously took up 30 minutes of your time. I'll try to do this video as quick as I can, but explain the problems as best I can to prepare you for today's assessment. So on today's assessment, you will have a section on the front page, just like these 3 problems with evaluating. There could be linear functions like number 1, quadratic like number 2, or absolute value like number 3. So you will see all of those. Sometimes you just plug in numbers like numbers 2 and 3, then your answer is a number. Sometimes you plug in an expression with a variable, then your answer will be an expression with a variable. So in number 1, if f of x is given, and here's my rule for f of x, but I want to find f of m minus 5. This means I am substituting an m minus 5 in anywhere that I saw an x. So for 3x plus 2, 3x plus 2 instead of x, so sometimes I like to kind of cross it off and put a parenthesis, I put in m minus 5. From here you just simplify. So distribute the 3 to the m minus 5, you get 3m minus 15, and then add 2, and then combine like terms, so 3m minus 13 is that final answer. For number 2, we're plugging in a number. So like I said, our answer will be a number. If we want g of negative 3, notice anywhere we see an x, now we're plugging in a negative 3. So here's how I like to kind of set it up. 2 times negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 3 plus 1. You're not just plugging negative 3 in once, you're plugging it in twice because we had x twice. So, order of operations is PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You do parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication division is tied left to right. Addition and subtraction is tied also left to right. So, we have exponent first, which is negative 3 squared. That becomes a positive 9. And then negative 4 times negative 3 is plus 12, and then plus 1. 18 plus 12 plus 1. If I go left to right and add all these, I get 31. There's my answer to number 2. Number 3. Couple things on number 2. Make sure when you do a negative 3 squared, you get a positive 9. If it was a negative 3 squared without parentheses, it would be a negative 9. But if you have an x squared and you're plugging in a negative 3, then you should have parentheses around that. Also make sure you square before you do the times 2. You do not want to multiply and get negative 6 and then square to get 36. That'll give you a different answer. Okay, last evaluating problem. This should be an h over here. So an h of negative 5. So I have the absolute value of negative 5 minus 6 and then plus 3. So first I have to do what's inside the absolute value. Negative 5 minus 6 is negative 11. Then I take the absolute value of negative 11, which is positive 11. Now my absolute value is gone, and then I add 11 plus 3 to get 14. All right, so this is what the front page of your assessment will look like. So you have to just take whatever's in the parentheses, replace it wherever you had an x, and then simplify using order of operations and make sure you show all work. All right, next we have questions like what is the minimum, the y-intercept, the maximum, the zeros. So in number 4, the minimum, I look at the lowest point on the graph, and for the minimum, I just want to give that y value. So this y value is a negative 4. I also was asked for y-intercept. I look at where it crosses the y-axis, and I write it as a point 0, 1. Number 5, the maximum and the zeros. So the max is the y value of the highest point on the graph, which is up here. That y value is a 5. And for the zeros, along the x-axis, it's crossing twice. So we have 2 answers. And if it's asking for zeros, we should technically write it x equals negative 3 and x equals 0. However, if you write it as negative 3, 0 and 0, 0, I'm okay with that too. That would be if it had asked for x-intercepts. So these are the x-intercepts. Then you write it as points. So there's 2 answers there. Last problem. You will have one of these on today's assessment as well. where it kind of goes through everything, domain and range, and then evaluating using a graph, and then the y-intercept, 0, min and max, which we just did. So domain is reviewing what we went over last week, where you're listing your x values left to right. So I'm going to use purple for this. If I look from left to right, I'm going from a -5 to a 3, and I use brackets. I'm going to use green for the range. The lowest to the highest is going from -2 to +3, and I use brackets again because I have closed points there. All right, the next problem is finding f of -2. So if x is -2, what is y? And we have a point at -2, 1. F of 1, if I look where x is 1, the y is also 1. F of 2, when I look at x is 2, the y is 0. F of -4, when x is -4, the y is -1. So that's how you find all of those. G is different, and a lot of you did get this wrong on your practices. This is saying if f of x, which is y, is equal to 3, what is x? So when y is 3, I'm now looking on the y-axis for 3, which is this point right here, and the x is a 0. So you're working backwards there. It's not saying when x is 3, what is y? So if you put -1, that's the mistake you made. It's saying if y is 3, then what is x? Let me erase all these marks on the graph for the last part now. The last part over here is y-intercept, so that's at 0, 3. The x-intercepts are zeros, so you could either write it as zeros, x equals a -3, and x equals 2. That's where it's crossing the x-axis. Or you could put -3, 0, and 2, 0. Okay, maximum, the highest point is at 0, 3, so the y is a 3. Minimum, the lowest point is -5, -2, the y is a -2. Notice that the min and the max are the y values of the highest and lowest point, which match up with the range. -2 to 3, that was your min, that was your max. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there so I can get this posted for you. And I will have your assessment posted at noon for you to begin, and that should be due today at 2 o'clock. Sorry again for the bad connection, and hopefully it's not an issue tomorrow. Have a good day.